Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Monday, August 3rd, 2020, and today I'm going to be talking about Joe Biden and Texas. So Texas has actually been one of the centerpieces of my channel for quite some time now, given that it has recently become a swing state on the electoral college map. This state itself should not have been competitive in the past. It was not too competitive in 2016, and we'll dive into why Joe Biden is expecting to do very well in this state and why a number of Republicans, including Senator Ted Cruz, who just won his Senate bid back in 2018, very contentious race back then, but is warning the overall GOP, the national GOP, and Donald Trump that Texas is absolutely in play. So we're going to talk about that. So Joe Biden actually just increased staff members and staff resources in this state. It's 38 electoral votes. It is normally a safe Republican state, or at least likely a Republican state, but now everything's changed. Number one, President Trump isn't doing too well nationwide. He's down 8%. So in an environment in which Joe Biden leads by 8%, Texas becomes a toss-up. So we're going to run through this article really quickly from CBS News and just discuss the main pieces from this that give us a very general idea as to why certain Democratic members of the Biden campaign think that Texas will go to Vice President Biden and what's actually happening in Texas in terms of increased staff resources and what the Biden campaign is doing to win here. So let's do a little bit of a background on Texas. Texas hasn't gone to a Democratic candidate since 1976. Jimmy Carter was the last Democrat to carry Texas. When we look at Texas, it's a state that went from Mitt Romney by over 15%, went to John McCain, went to Donald Trump by 9%. So Texas actually had a pretty significant drop from 2012 to 2016, around 7% statewide. It was pretty significant and also pretty notable that just 2 years later, it narrowed up an additional 7% on the Senate level. So though a Democrat hasn't won it since 1976, the last time it was competitive was 1996, but that largely had to do with the fact that there was a third-party candidate who got a pretty sizable portion of the vote in both 92 and 96. Since then, the Republicans have had Texas as a stronghold. So Trump is pushing away a lot of Republicans in a state that is a traditional GOP state. And, we can actually see that Congressman Vela says that Donald Trump will lose the state of Texas. He's a Democrat. He endorsed Joe Biden very early on in the campaign season. And, he says in 3 reasons, you can read right here where I'm highlighting, but just to summarize them, COVID-19 is a main reason why Biden will win Texas. The second reason is that Biden will beat Trump in the suburbs around the Houston, Dallas areas that are traditionally Republican, and then Democratic candidates in the past, which didn't do too well in rural counties, Joe Biden will considerably outperform them. So when we think about those 3 reasons, it's pretty solid reasoning as to why Democrats think that Texas could actually go blue. Joe Biden and Democrats around this country, whether it was 2018 or even in the primaries in terms of turnout, have increased party registration and party vote share in the suburban areas. Rural areas were really never going to go to the Democratic Party. Urban areas have always been going to the Democratic Party. Now, looking at suburban areas, these are typically Republican voters, or at least swing voters, that have almost solidly voted for the Democratic Party in the past few elections following the 2016 presidential one. So, Texas will be a very good showing as to whether or not the Republican Party has lost these suburban voters, because they drive a significant portion of the electorate in Texas. So the Democrats actually had a record number of Texas Democrats turn out in the state primary, in the Senate primary, 955,000 Texas Democrats. That's insane. That's not as much as the presidential primary, just because these primaries are held on different days, but almost a million voters, Texas Democrats, voted in a Senate runoff, despite in 2018 both candidates received more than the winning 2018 gubernatorial primary candidate. So it's pretty significant. There aren't really too many notable names running for Senate there. Actually, there aren't really any notable names running for Senate in Texas right now. So for that number to be very high, definitely a good indicator for the Democratic Party. The Biden campaign is also spending money here, dropping $100,000 in this state for TV ads. Now, Texas is big. It's going to take a little bit more than just one ad thrown out there to win over the state itself. But Joe Biden will probably be focusing a lot of money on this state. He's one of the few Democrats to actually focus and, bat down on Texas. The Obama campaign had members in Texas. The Clinton campaign did as well. Kerry campaign, Gore campaign, because it's Texas. I mean, in terms of the popular vote, it matters. But for the Democratic Party, never really was supposed to be competitive. I mean, Obama literally lost this state by 15%, and 8 years later, it could possibly be a Democratic state. Wow. That's insane. So for Texas itself, has a real possibility of flipping. So we're actually going to get off this article and move over to the actual data and talk about why Biden is leading now and what that means for the overall national average. So based off the 538 data, Joe Biden leads in Texas by 0.5%. That's not a significant lead, but it's a lot higher than where Donald Trump was. Sorry, not a lot higher than where Hillary Clinton was 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Trump was leading in this state by 12% on election day and around the same margin around this time. So for August, back in August 2016, Trump was widely expected to carry Texas. In fact, we have the 538 2016 election forecast where we can go ahead and take a look at the day. August 3rd. On August 3rd, Hillary Clinton had roughly an 8% chance at victory in Texas. Donald Trump had a 92% chance of victory. 9 in 10 chances, Trump was going to win. Larger than that, actually. So it was almost without a doubt that Trump was going to carry Texas. In terms of polls, Trump led by pretty significant margins following the October surprise for Hillary Clinton. Trump plus 11, plus 13, and then the SurveyMonkey poll released, but it was the lowest rated pollster, C-, Trump plus 4, and then an A-rated pollster, Trump plus 11. So when we look at that, that's pretty significant. Trump had a very dominating lead in this state, and guess what? The polls were right. He carried Texas by a 9% margin. The overall average was 12%, but he ended up winning it by 9%, which means there was a 3-point swing in favor of the left. Now in 2018, we see the exact same thing happening. Ted Cruz led by 7% on election day, only won by 3. That's a 4-point swing in favor of the Democratic Party. Any type of swing, if it's not to the right, Biden wins the election in Texas. He wins the election actually overall because Texas is 38 electoral votes. Biden leads now despite being underwater practically throughout the entire campaign season, throughout all of March. And yes, the margin was closer, and that comes as a result of increasing minority vote share in Texas and moving suburban voting blocks that have moved over into the Democratic column. So Texas was not competitive in 2016. I know some people are going to comment that. They're not going to reach this part of the video because they're not watching the entire thing. And they're going to comment, wasn't Texas competitive in 2016? Literally send them this portion of the video, the timestamp, because no, it was not competitive in 2016. You can cherry pick your polling data and say Hillary Clinton was only down 3% in this one poll. But if you take a look at everything accounted for in the 538 model, Trump had a 95% chance of carrying Texas on election day. And he wasn't leading, Clinton was not leading in any of these polls throughout the entire campaign season. So for Biden to be leading on the overall average, not just one particular poll, that's pretty significant. And if we take a look at the overall national average, obviously this is not mimicking the national average, but again, we are working in an environment where the Democratic Party leads 8% nationwide. That's why Texas is competitive. When Clinton led by 3%, Texas wasn't competitive. A 5-point swing has moved over a state that already moved further left in these past 4 years, all combining into the possibility of going to Joe Biden. Now let's talk about some of these forecasts. Despite the polling data indicating that Joe Biden has a realistic shot at Texas, a lot of these forecasts, JHK forecasts and The Economist, expect Trump to win by roughly a 68-69% chance. That makes sense. Trump probably will still carry Texas. I won't characterize Texas for Joe Biden, but looking at the percentage change, at one point in time, Trump was at an 87% chance at carrying Texas. Now he's down to a 69% chance. Now, that's a pretty significant drop. That's almost 20%. And for Trump to be continuing down in this state that has no new data that's actually benefited President Trump, it's not a good sign that the margins have continued to decrease in this state. Because if Texas is going blue, every other swing state is going blue. This is a state that went to Trump by 9%, which likely could entail that the entire country has moved 9 points leftward in favor of, obviously, Joe Biden. Looking at The Economist, again, the same exact thing, a 69% chance in Texas. It's not exactly safe, but it's a pretty comfortable number for Donald Trump, but this data doesn't exactly correlate with that. Now, I understand there are undecided voters, and a traditional Republican state, these undecideds typically break for the GOP, but if anything, this election has shown us is that you can't really expect things to go the same way that they have in the past. Texas is a toss-up. Now, if we look at the predicted market, it roughly mimics what we see on the forecast in terms of percentage. Now, obviously, it was higher before. If we take a look at the very beginning of the election season, Texas was not at 75 cents for the Republicans. It was way higher, but it only lets me go to a 90-day streak. If anyone knows how to fix that or go further than that, please let me know in the comment section down below. But for right now, I only know how to show the 90-day streak. Pretty much throughout the entire campaign season, Trump has always led, and he continues to lead. He continues in the forecast. He continues on literally everything except for the polls. Now, obviously, these polls could be wrong. And it is possible that Biden still loses Texas. I'm not saying that Biden is going to carry Texas by any means. Beto O'Rourke was incorrect when he said that Texas is Biden's race to lose. Yes, Biden is doing better than you did, you being Beto O'Rourke, but at the same time, it's a presidential election year. Turnout will be up higher on the Republican side than it probably was in 2018, given the fact that not many of those Republicans had something to vote for if they weren't too happy with President Trump, or even voted for a third-party candidate, or didn't even vote in the Senate election. A lot of that attributed to Beto O'Rourke's narrowing up in that Senate race. But again, Ted Cruz has been warning Donald Trump. The Democrats haven't won here, though, in decades, so it would be very substantial if the Democratic Party was able to win here, a state that wasn't even remotely competitive for Obama, remotely competitive for Kerry, remotely competitive for Clinton, remotely competitive for Gore. Now, all of a sudden, has a very real possibility of going to Joe Biden. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. This is the list of the sources that I used. If you're wondering where I get these forecasts from, they're on the screen right now, or you can just type in, whatever you see on the screen. That's pretty much it. And like I said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure you comment down suggestions below. Subscribe to the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. I'm posting more on the Instagram. I think I actually might make a story post today. And then in the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link. You can go ahead and join the Let's Talk Elections Discord. Pretty cool. Go ahead and join that. And then on your screen, there's a video that you can go ahead and watch, and then a playlist of my 2020 election predictions. Thank you guys again for the third time, and I will see you all tomorrow.